Neil McEvoy, leader of PROPEL, candidate along with Steve Robinson, ex-world champ in South Wales Central, and also police commissioner candidate with, well, our police commissioner candidate, Dr. Gail John, is standing with me. What we have in front of us there, not sure how well you can see, it's a bit overcast now, but many green fields in the west of Cardiff. So people are tuning in now. I'll swing it round. There we go, here's me. I'm on top of the Garth mountain. Just walk up a little bit further. Breathe a little bit heavy, so I ran the last part because I got delayed coming here, just talking to people, which was a great pleasure, but just maybe a little bit late for here. And my wife is watching, it's going to make me a little bit late for supper, love, okay? So I'll be back as soon as I can. One criticism that we've had from people, valid actually, is that they don't really know enough about what our policies are. I did a little off-the-cuff live this morning. What I'm going to do now is go through each policy in turn, and we've got 10. We're calling it a contract, the contract with Wales, with you, the people of Wales. We don't want a manifesto which just gathers dust on a shelf. What we want is a contract with you guys out there. So here it is. So I don't forget anything, and I make sure that I check with it and read. Well, the first thing we want is to come out of lockdown. Lockdown is doing far more damage than good now. Context is that we have 31 candidates standing for election. Some of us have a good chance of winning. Cardiff West, either me or Drakeford. That's the reality. And on the first day of any PROPEL supported government, what we want is an audit, a forensic and independent audit of all the accounts. And I want to look into fraud, corruption. Any money saved will go to the NHS in Wales. Now, I've been saying for a long time that Wales is one of the most corrupt countries in Europe. My experience in Cardiff Bay has reinforced that. The reason that PROPEL exists was because I was told to stop asking questions about corruption by Plaid Cymru and refused. So, I mean, we'll come to that in a second. Done that. The lockdowns. Not go back into lockdown, that is key. First act that we want to pass is the COVID Virus Recovery Act. End all lockdowns, don't go back into lockdowns. Gyms should be open and reclassified as essential service providers. We want to see greater investment in mental health. I mean, people have really suffered over the last 12 months, and what we're providing is a way out. And what I would say as well is, bear in mind, the government last time was put in by a single one Liberal Democrat who basically jumped ship and joined Labour in government. Second one, you may have heard of it. We want a Welsh Energy Independence Act. Now, what many people don't realise is, the hill's quite steep here, is that we have in Wales, in the old mines, we have at least 50 billion, and that's recorded right now. Methane in the old mines. What we want to do in PROPEL is untap that unused resource. We can make £25 billion. We can employ people. Companies in the private sector are already interested. The reality is that Labour in power in 2017 decided not to use the gas. Okay, the BBC journalist asked me why. Well, it's not for me to explain really. The gas is there, and our Labour government would prefer people to live in poverty. What they're saying is that the smear really from Friends of the Earth Cymru, whose chief executive is a former Plaid Cymru worker and a former Plaid Cymru member of staff. So if Harv is watching, please get your facts right. Because what we're doing at the moment is we're importing gas from Russia, from Qatar, It's being taken out of the ground there, put on ships and shipped to Milford Haven, and the gas, it's made into gas then from liquid petroleum. It's then pumped through the pipeline. For every single ship coming from Russia or Qatar, there is a cost to the environment of 250,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide. 250,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide every single ship. So if we start using our own gas, employing Welsh people, setting up a Welsh energy company, we're going to cut Wales's carbon footprint substantially. And what we want from the funds is to the profits to invest it in a sovereign wealth fund like Norway does, and that's going to be a pension for our children and our children's children in Wales. Also, what we want is to invest the money in renewable energy so that by the time the gas runs out, Wales will be 100% renewable energy production. So all our energy will be taken care of by renewables. Make sure I get everything there. Oh, the other thing which we want to do as well is make Wales a beacon, really, for carbon capture technology. Again, really good for the environment. And I know it's going on already, but what we want to do is make Wales a leading light in that technology. I've got it written down so I don't make any emissions from the policies. Number 3 is a modern direct democracy act. Some of you will have heard me talk about a Bill of Rights, a constitution that we want. We want proportional representation, single transferable vote, so that if 30% of people vote for a particular political party, then they get 30% of the seats, more or less. As it is now, Labour can get 35%, just over a third, and have a majority. It's not fair. We want to have Wales split into 8 counties along the old county borders, more or less. We want those counties to be sovereign, so Cardiff cannot dictate to Gwynedd, for example, or other counties. So we want to devolve power from the centre to the regions. What we want as well is each county area to have a directly elected governor. We want each county to have a cooperative bank, so we can invest in local businesses, so that we can invest in communities, and so that we can also. Somebody saying the football is on Sky. Sorry about that, guys. I'm doing a broadcast. I'll watch it later. We've got the First Minister as well, directly elected by the people of Wales, because as it stands now, nobody voted for Mark Drakeford to be First Minister, and yet on the say-so of a number of Labour Party members, there he is dictating to us, telling us all what to do. We want a feasibility study into a second chamber, another parliament which looks at legislation, plays a House of Lords role, and that will be in the north. That's what we propose. We also want the presiding officer to be non-political. As it stands now, the office really has been besmirched by Ellen Jones. It's quite embarrassing how politicised the Senedd has become, and so what we want is whoever is the presiding officer, rather like Westminster. This is a good example from Westminster. They're non-political. They're not in a party group. Okay, number 4. My tea's on the table almost. We want to reform local development plans. I'm going to turn around now, so maybe you can see all the green spaces behind me there, which are going to go with the local development plan in Cardiff. We want greenfield sites protected, and we want to provide affordable housing on brownfield sites. Oh, my microphone's come off. We want to provide affordable housing on brownfield sites. Give me a sec. What we want as well is to establish rural development boards to develop the rural economy. We want to also upgrade Wales's strategic infrastructure. So we want a north-south expressway, basically a road, improve the road going from north to south, A470 for example, so that we can drive from north to south at 60 miles an hour, because at the moment Wales is not united transport wise, and we want to make sure that it is. In terms of train lines, we want to reinstate Aberystwyth to Carmarthen, Avon to Bangor. We want a simple single ticketing survey or system for all public journeys. Right, number 5, we want a Public Services Accountability Act. This is really my bag. We want to have Robbie's Law in place. Will Powell, I mean, the man's campaigned for 30 years for justice for his family. It wasn't until I met Will that I realised that professionals that have no duty when things go wrong, medically for example, to tell you the truth. So what we want is a Robbie's Law, whereby people, professionals in medicine for example, are obliged by law to tell the truth. We want a public services investigator, so when things go wrong, Celia Jones was on with me the other Sunday. Dreadful things went wrong in the death of her partner, long-term partner in hospital, and we want a proper investigator available to the people of Wales. We want each one elected. We want each one not to have played a role in party politics the previous 10 years, and we want to make the state, we want to make local authorities, health boards, local education authorities, the police, we want to make all of those accountable. To finance that, we get rid of the Ombudsman, who's really certainly not worth the money spent on the office, and we can get rid of the complaints procedures in those organisations above stage 1. The upshot would be maybe that the stage 1 complaints will work a lot more effectively, so that people can get justice. I mean, I'm sick and tired of picking up children's services files and reading through reports where there's so many things which are untrue. Next one, we want a new Welsh Economy Act, because there's no reason why people in Wales have to live with such a poor economy. We want a stock exchange in Wales, why not? London's got one, let's get one in Cardiff. We want the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as I said, where the profits from the gas go into that and are used for the benefit of the community. I've mentioned the cooperative banks. We want an emphasis as well on high-tech manufacturing for the 21st century. So that doesn't particularly mean old industry. What we're looking at is new technologies that we can really make Wales a cutting-edge leader in. We want to reindustrialise the Welsh economy, as I said, for the 21st century, with an emphasis on what I've just spoken about there. Okay, number 6, the new Welsh Economy Act. Number 7, get in there, bear with me. This is dear to my heart, and I know for many people out there as well. What we want is a Children Before Profit Act in Wales, and really it says what it means on the tin: children before profit. We want to outlaw private companies making millions off the care of children. Billions, actually. It's a multi-billion pound industry. The fact that I'm challenging this industry is a reason why I'm briefed against. It's a reason why you see so many crap headlines about me on the BBC, because these are very powerful people with lots of disposable money. They're taking children unfairly. They're taking children unjustly. I bumped into my mother the other day, I think I mentioned this on another video, suffering from PTSD, okay? She hadn't been out of the house for God knows how long, and she was taken for a walk, and because she'd lost a child at birth who was taken. What we want to do is keep families together. It's cheaper, it's more socially cohesive, and it's just. So that's what we want to do there. We want to safely reduce the number of children in care, the number of children who've been adopted. We want to give every sibling the right to remain in contact with their brother or sister if taken into care. What is shocking is, I mean, I spoke to one mum where the 10-year-old was given a goodbye forever session with its younger sister. Can you imagine? you're 10 years of age, you're taken to a room with social workers, and you're told it's the last time you're ever going to see your sister until she's 18. The plan for me, the personal plan for me actually, is to do a law course, a law conversion course after the election, because I'm sick and tired of coming across so many cases like this, and I want to get into court and do something about it. So in the ideal world, I'll be able to take up the cases as a politician and maybe get involved at the sharp end as well. Coming to that now, Lewis, parental alienation. Give me a sec. We want early intervention as well to support families. We want also a full inquiry, a full Senedd inquiry into how children's services are run. And I want to give every single traumatised parent, every single traumatised brother, every single traumatised child, adult, the right to explain what has happened to them, how they were treated in care, why they were taken into care, how parents fighting to keep the children were pushed to mental breakdown, and until they had to submit and were unable to fight anymore. I want all these stories recorded. PROPEL wants these stories recorded. I want an apology from the state for how they've treated families. Cafcass Cymru needs to recognise parental alienation, and they need to act upon it. You have these highly paid professionals basically ignoring. We've made some progress through the Petitions Committee, but basically ignoring the way that children are alienated from their parents. Growing for Wales Act, that's what we want. Growing. An Agricultural Commission. We want, excuse me, we want to respect the farming community. We want farming looked at as a way of life. We want farmers, instead of being vilified unfairly as they are now, we want them respected. We want them treated as guardians of our countryside. We want to use their knowledge, use their expertise, use their love of the land for the benefit of us all. We want as much food produced in Wales as possible. We want to source local, so your local schools buy food locally. I'd like to see cooperatives, actually, food cooperatives, using public land as well, maybe in city areas. We want to put the emphasis on making farming a way of life. We want to legalise the medicinal use of all cannabinoids, okay? So you can go into a chemist and buy cannabis-based medicine without any stigma. Just go in and buy it. And we want Welsh farmers, of course, to grow the produce. So we want the All Wales Medicine Strategy Group to do that. We can do it ourselves. Okay, right, next one. Number 9. We're getting there, people. We're getting there. Thanks for excuse me. So I've run up the hill. Celebrating Welsh culture. The Celebrating Welsh Culture Act. What a brilliant act that we could put in place here. We want to legislate to make St David's Day a major public holiday in Wales. I know we can't make it a bank holiday UK-wide, like the UK government can, but we can take steps in the public sector in Wales to make sure that it is in effect a bank holiday. And we can encourage private sector companies to do the same. We need to fund, it'd be amazing to fund parades up and down Wales like we have now. Lots of volunteers doing a really good job. Let's give them a bit of public funding. Let's make these parades massive. Let's make March the 1st the beginning of the tourist industry, the beginning of rebirth of Wales every year in the spring. Create a Welsh culture passport, because if you're like me, I grew up in Cardiff, and there was so much about Welsh culture I didn't know, so much about Welsh history I didn't know, still don't actually. My wife has educated me quite a lot, and I want children all over Wales to grow up knowing the history of this land, and I want to see a culture passport to enable everyone to travel around Wales and know our own culture. We want free Welsh immersion classes. So all those guys out there who want to learn Welsh, we want to make it free. You know, learn, this is the language of Wales. Learn it. Learning Welsh was one of the best things I ever did. And I'm lucky it was free for me because I was teaching at the time. My school needed another Welsh teacher and I was sent on a course. It's fantastic. What was funny, when I arrived, I met a load of people from Patagonia and I spoke to them in Spanish because I couldn't speak a word of Welsh. And they knew all the hymns, poems. It was really weird meeting people from thousands of miles away that knew a lot more about Wales, or some aspects of Wales, better than me. And just as a point of reference, the Liberal Democrats, Labour and Plaid Cymru in the Senedd voted against free Welsh immersion classes. One thing I've left out as well is the lobbying one back in the Public Accountability Act. How could I miss that out? We want lobbyists in Wales to be regulated. Okay, moving on. Number 10, the Housing Justice Act. We want a package of measures to end housing injustice. People who are homeless, we don't want them having to go to hostels. Some are dangerous. I was speaking to a homeless person today who is living in a tent because he doesn't want to go to the Huggard. What we need to do is reorientate funding from those hostels with the very well paid chief executives, and we want to simply house people. And where people have needs, the housing has to be supported. In Finland, they do that. Let's take the homeless off the street in Wales. And all you need is a political will to do it, basically. We want to close the second home loophole, where people do not pay tax by reclassifying their homes as businesses. We want to put a service charge cap on flats and properties because people are getting rinsed. I mean, it's scandalous. I speak to people like down the bay and council tenants and people who bought their properties, and they get absolutely hammered every year by increases in service charge. Excuse me. So we will link it to the consumer price index to make it fair. Get in there now. Not much longer. The cladding scandal. The cladding. We did a video about this a few weeks ago. Redrow and the other building companies have to put it right. Now, personally speaking as well, what I'd like to do is bring in some penalties as well for housing associations like Trevalis, who promise the earth and then really let their clients down. Because, excuse me, people are living in accommodation which is not safe, and it simply isn't fair. And what we want to do is, if those building companies are not going to put the buildings right, they don't do business in Wales. It's as simple as that. There's enough levers of government to ensure that happens. We want a new right to buy scheme as well. And it's not fair that people pay rent on properties for 30 years, 40 years, parents die, kids get kicked out. It's not right. So what we want is to give people the right to buy their own homes at market rates. The money is then reinvested to allow people to have more access to more social housing. We want to bring long-term properties back into use as well. And we want to outlaw the renaming of Welsh properties. I think it's really, really bad that that happens. Finally, what we want to do is give military veterans the right to a home when they have seen active service. I think that is only fair. And so what we've got there, if you've bared with me for the last few minutes, more than a few minutes, congratulations, well done, because those are Propel's policies going into the election, and what we're doing with our contract is seeking a mandate from the public to put these into law. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me now, and consider how you cast your votes. We want to shake up Welsh politics. That's why we formed Propel. Diolch yn fawr.